Hey guys, how are we doing today? I'm excited to say I'm officially in Brazil. I'm in São Paulo, Brazil. First time in my life I'm in Brazil. I'm very excited about that. But I won't waste any more of your time with that. Let's get on with the video. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about why I don't like the Cambridge English exam. It's officially called the Cambridge English Qualifications, but I'm just going to call it the Cambridge English exam. So I went to their website, their official website, cambridgeenglish.org, and I downloaded their C1 and C2 sample tests. So before we begin, I just want to say this video is for entertainment purposes. I'm not an expert on the topic. It's not meant to be taken too seriously. This is kind of just a fun video for me to voice my opinion for people who might be interested. Because I'm a native English speaker, I am an English teacher, and I'm a language student myself. So before we get into the screenshots and the comments about the sample tests, I have two disclaimers, let's say. I have two things that I need to talk about, that I need to establish before we get into that stuff. So first of all, the Cambridge English exam is a British exam. It's mainly based on British English. Now, I'm from the United States, and you could say, okay, well, of course, you're going to be biased. And yes, it's true. I do think the majority of English students should focus on North American English. So that would be like general Canadian and United States English. I generally only recommend students to learn British English or Australian English or to focus on these dialects if they are going to live there. But the reason why I think this way is based on the numbers of native speakers. So in North America, we have at least 320 million native speakers between the US and Canada. In England, they only have around 50 million native speakers, so we have over 6 times the amount of native speakers. Also, in my experience, English students have generally told me that North American English is often easier to understand, and they experience it more commonly in media. And for these reasons, just looking at the numbers, I promote North American English. So for that reason, I would say that the Cambridge English exam is pretty much only relevant for people who are focusing on British English, but some students need to take it for other reasons, so you do what you want, or whatever works for you. I'm not here to tell you not to take this exam or what you should or shouldn't do. Disclaimer number 2 is that sometimes when I make videos like this, I get accused of oversimplifying or dumbing down English, kind of being like anti-intellectual, I've seen people say, which is absolutely crazy to me. Because from my perspective as a language student and teacher of more than 7 years, I'm just being realistic. I prioritize the most common and realistic ways in which languages are used. Also, I understand that the vast majority of adult English learners in the world are not applying to English-speaking universities. Most of my students over the years already have careers and already use some English in their work or in their daily lives, and they just want to improve it. So from what I can see, exams like the Cambridge exam are designed for the minority of adult English learners or young English learners who are looking to apply to universities in English. Because after looking at the samples, I realized that these exams are not only testing your English knowledge, but they're also testing your general academic skills, like organization of thoughts when you're speaking or writing, quick thinking, improvisation, etc. Actually, in the writing section of the exam, there's a part where you have to write an essay, a short essay. And of the 4 criteria that are used to evaluate your essay, to judge your essay, 2 of them seem to be more about your ability to write a short essay, not your use of English. One of the criteria is organization, which is literally how you organize your essay. And another one is communicative achievement, which is just basically how well you're able to communicate your ideas in the form of an essay. So it's really more about your ability to write an essay than your knowledge of English. So if you're not good at writing an essay, even in your native language, if your academic skill, especially in writing or reading or whatever, is not really great in your native language, it's going to be a lot harder for you in another language. I mean, this sounds kind of obvious, it goes without saying, but people who typically do better academically in their native language are probably going to have an easier time in their academic endeavors of their second or third language. All right, so those were my disclaimers. I needed to tell you that. I needed to establish that before we get into the screenshots and my criticism of the actual sample tests. So I'm going to be showing you screenshots from the C1 sample test that I found on their official website. I'm not going to be showing you C2, but I looked at C2 myself and I thought it was very similar, almost the same as C1, but some of the vocab was a little bit less common and more advanced. Some of the words I didn't even know. So yeah, I would say it just has a bit more advanced vocabulary that a lot of us native speakers don't even know or barely ever see or use. Because even a lot of books are not written with that level of vocabulary. But generally, the C2 test wasn't like extremely different than C1. So I think most students just need the C1 certification or whatever. So we're just going to focus on the C1 sample test. And that is the test where my screenshots are from. Okay, so we're going to start with the listening section. Honestly, I only listened to like one of the audios, and yeah, it was a couple British people talking in a way that sounded like it is from a Jane Austen movie. Like it sounded like people don't even talk like that anymore. Like it sounded like old British English. I don't know. Maybe people still talk like that, but it sounded like Pride and Prejudice to me. The movie Pride and Prejudice, not actual Pride and Prejudice. If you don't know, it's a movie. Okay. So for the listening section, I mostly just looked at the written component. So you listen to an audio and then you have to choose an answer from multiple choice, or you have to write down what you heard. So here's one that I took a screenshot of. It's describing the audio. It says, you hear two friends talking about ways of keeping fit. Now, I don't know if they actually use the phrase keeping fit in the audio or not, but I screenshotted this just to show you like a typical difference between British English and American English or North American English. The phrase keeping fit, I've never heard that. I've never seen that in my life. That's probably a British phrase. In the US, we would probably just say like staying in shape or something else. We understand keeping fit, I guess, but it just sounds strange. And it's fine. I mean, it's a British English test. It's going to have British English phrases. I mean, it's not rocket science. I don't have an issue with that. I'm just saying that if you are never going to live over there, then this is kind of just confusing. Like it's kind of irrelevant for you. Okay, now we're looking at the reading section. So you have one sentence. It says, James would only speak to the head of department alone. And then you have the word on. And then after that, you have a second sentence, James blank to the head of department alone. So basically, you need to fill in that blank space with something that makes this sentence mean basically the same thing as the first sentence. So in that blank space, you need to write something that means like would only speak. But you have to use the word on. You have to use the word that they give you in your phrase. I would have left this answer blank. I would have left this one blank because I did not know what to put there. The correct answer, according to the answer test, was insisted on speaking. So the complete sentence would be, James insisted on speaking to the head of department alone, which basically means the same as James would only speak to the head of department alone, basically. This is what I mean about it's not just testing your English knowledge, it's testing your ability to think quickly and to improvise, to be able to pull words out of nowhere. Because in this case, it's not multiple choice. They didn't give you a word bank, meaning they didn't give you like recommended or suggested phrases or words to use, right? They said you have to use this word on, but the other words you just have to think of yourself. The next one is they are demolishing the old bus station and replacing it with a new one. And so you have to fill in the blank between the old bus station is and with a new one. But you have to use this word pulled. I did not know the answer. And then I looked at the answer sheet and it said the old bus station is being pulled down and replaced with a new one. The old bus station is being pulled down. Like, okay, that must be a British phrase because I've never heard that. I've never seen that. We would say it's being demolished Or maybe they're tearing it down. We say they're tearing it down, but we wouldn't say they're pulling it down. So here's the thing. People understand that there's a big accent difference between British and American English, but people don't realize how different the ways of expressing things are, like how different the phrases that we use can be. So yeah, we use a lot of different phrases. Okay, so the next one in the reading section is this text called Introduction to a Book About the History of Color. Color spelled with a U, because it's British. It's a pretty long text. It's like 5 or 6 paragraphs. It's pretty advanced academic written English. Nobody ever talks like this. I don't care if you're a professional, an expert in your field, and you're giving a presentation or whatever. You're not going to speak exactly like this. This is written academic English. The way these sentences are perfectly written, yeah, nobody talks like this. You might use high vocabulary in your speaking, depending on what you're talking about and what you know about, but you're not going to speak in these perfectly organized sentences with just difficult words every other word. Like, it's not going to be this condensed, advanced vocabulary. And at the end of this test, there were some questions with multiple choice answers. One of them was about the first paragraph. It said like, what is the point of the first paragraph? Or like, what was he talking about? I don't remember. It doesn't matter. I went back and read the first paragraph like 3 or 4 times. I read the multiple choice answers multiple times. I thought that none of those answers truly represented or truly answered the question about the first paragraph. And I noticed that in the reading section, a lot of the questions and the answers were like not super obvious or clear, even for me. So a lot of them I would be guessing and maybe I would get it right, but I was not confident. I was not confident with my answers. And that's one of the reasons I don't like multiple choice, is that sometimes one of them is the answer, but it's like worded in a way that like I wouldn't have said that. And so I think that it's not the answer. And then I get confused because one of them has to be the answer. So yeah, sometimes I feel like the answer in the multiple choice doesn't do it justice, or it's not really a good answer. Okay, the next part of the reading section. This is probably the number one most difficult, most ridiculous, most headache-inducing part of the test. Like, I hated, when I came to this part of the test, I tried to do it just to see like how difficult or easy it was. And I just gave up because it was so annoying. So they give you like an article, like a ton of paragraphs about a particular topic on one page. And then on the next page, they give you a bunch of other paragraphs. And in the article, there are gaps, there are spaces. So you're supposed to read both pages and you're supposed to see where the paragraphs on the second page fit into the text on the first page, where they fit into the article. So you have 2 groups of paragraphs and you have to merge them in a way that makes sense. That is so annoying. That's such an annoying activity. That's so painful. Like this kind of stuff, it just reminds me of, well, overall, this test reminded me of the SAT test in my high school experience. We all took the SATs, which we sent to colleges, and it basically just evaluates your overall academic skills. The SAT was pretty annoying. Shout out to all the colleges that don't require it. A lot of them don't, actually. Some of them still do, but a lot of them don't. But even on the SAT, I don't think there was something as annoying as this task, this thing of merging these 2 groups of paragraphs. I feel bad for all the people who have to take the Cambridge English exam. I really feel for you guys, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone. All right, so now we're going to take a look at the writing section. Here's one of the writing prompts. You have just completed 6 months in a new job. In preparation for a progress meeting, you have been asked to write a report to your manager. Your report should explain what you feel you have achieved in the job so far. Describe any problems you have had and suggest any future training that would be suitable. So my issue with this prompt is that it's asking you to be Creative Writer of the Year. I think it's asking too much of you because it doesn't even tell you what kind of job it is. So now you have to invent some kind of job and some kind of problems with the job and in some kinds of achievements related to the job and how it's been going. And like you have to be so imaginative, so creative. And not everybody is really good at that. Like, I feel like we're in creative writing class right now. I feel like we're in improv class. Like, I feel like this is that kind of class in college, not testing the English ability of ESL students. Here's another one. You see the following announcement on a website. The website is called Great Lives. Reviews wanted. Send us a review of a book or film that focuses on somebody who has made an important contribution to society. Did you learn anything new about the person's life from the book or film? Did the book or film help you understand why this person made their important contribution? Okay, so now I'm sitting here. I'm in the room taking the Cambridge English exam, and I'm trying to think of a book or a movie about the story of someone who made an important contribution to society. So now I'm sitting here spending 5 to 10 minutes thinking about books and movies that I have seen, that I've read. I'm going, maybe that one. Nah. What about that one? I don't know what to say about that one. I don't really remember many details about that one. What about that one? It's like, what are we doing here? Like, some people are already going to have something in mind. Some people are going to be able to think of one off the top of their head, but not everybody. All right, now I just wanted to show you guys, these are the 4 criteria that they use to evaluate your essay: content, communicative achievement, organization, and language. So you see how language is only one of the 4 criteria. So like the English language, the thing you're taking this freaking test for, is only one of the criteria. So you could have a person who's horrible at writing, but has a very high level of knowledge or ability in a language as far as speaking and listening, but they just suck at writing. They would probably fail this part. But like I said, this is really designed for students who are applying to universities, who are going to be doing a lot of academic writing. Most jobs, most employers, companies, they don't care about this kind of stuff. They're like, are you able to do your job? Do you have sufficient English to do this job? Okay, you're good. Like, they don't care about your ability to write an essay in most cases. If you're not in the academic sphere, it's not really relevant for you, right? A ton of my students over the years and my friends have been working in IT, or they just work for international companies, and their English is great. It's totally sufficient to do their job and more. How well would they do on these Cambridge exams? I don't know. I feel like I'm not really saying anything new. Most of you guys already know this. I talked about this in a previous video, but in the previous video, I didn't really realize that I would get a lot of backlash in the comments. So then I wrote a pinned comment explaining and clarifying everything. So I also probably shouldn't have used ChatGPT in that video because a lot of people reacted harshly to that. But yeah, ChatGPT is wrong a lot. It is like, the more I use it, the more I realize how wrong it is so often. But in that particular video, for this particular topic of the CEFR levels, I think it's pretty accurate because it's pretty hard to be wrong about these levels. I mean, it's a pretty simple concept, and all the information is on the internet, and it's not rocket science. It's, most of us already generally understand the CEFR levels. So I was mostly just using ChatGPT to give me some example sentences, not to research. But anyways, I explained all that and more in the pinned comment of that very controversial video if you want to go check it out. It's called something like, "What's your level in English? Not what you really think." But anyway, so I wanted to take a closer look at the Cambridge exam, and I'm thinking about doing the IELTS for the next video. I'm not sure. Let me know if you want me to review the IELTS exam. But yeah, a lot of people suggested that I take a look at these exams, and honestly, I was curious, so here I am. Usually when I do these videos, there are a million things that I forget to mention, or I assume people understand, and then I see in the comments that they didn't understand. So if I think of anything that I want to add later, or if there's anything that I feel like I need to clarify about this video and what I said in this video, I will put it in a pinned comment below. If you don't see a pinned comment, well, then I don't have anything else to add at the moment. And yeah, so I looked at the reading, writing, and listening parts of the C1 sample test. I don't really know what the speaking test would be like. I didn't really see that in there, but I know that they're not expecting you to speak or even write in the way that they do in academic English or, in the test itself. I think overall they're pretty forgiving. Like they understand that you're probably going to speak and write in a very everyday English type way. So yeah, they're okay with that. I'm pretty sure as long as you don't make too many mistakes, as long as you communicate pretty effectively, pretty clearly, you express your ideas well. That's really the main point. It's not like, oh, can you speak in this like super advanced way? No, it's just like, can you speak well? Can you communicate well? That's really what it is. So overall, I don't think that the test is insane or horrible or whatever. I wouldn't go that far, but there definitely are some things that I don't like about it, some things that I think are too difficult or just straight up annoying, like headache inducing, like I said. Yeah, so that's about it. I think that's all I wanted to say. Thank you for making it to the end. If you did, I really appreciate you. And let me know in the comments what you would like me to talk about. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be related to this topic. It could be anything. So let me know, as always, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.